This is Geek Gab with your host, Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. That's right, Geek Gab, the biggest, the baddest, the best darn overlooked podcast on the entire internet. I want to welcome everyone who is in the chat, even as we speak. And I also want to welcome my great, grand, and glorious co-hosts. Dorrinal, how was... Oh, wait. See, this is the time where I pause, and I give them a chance to speak. I know it's shocking and surprising, but technically speaking, I don't talk for the entire show all by myself, usually. And so, but before we do, before I give my erstwhile co-hosts their opportunity to greet you, the audience of this awesome podcast, I want to make a big announcement. We have made contact through means arcane and Byzantine with the Hollywood movie star actor Adam Baldwin. Adam Baldwin, otherwise known as Animal Mother, in Full Metal Jacket, and Adam Baldwin, otherwise known as Jane, in Firefly, otherwise known as Colonel John Casey, in the sadly canceled too soon TV series Chuck, has agreed to appear with us on a very special episode of Geek Gab. We will hopefully be recording that sometime next week. It's possible we might broadcast that live, but that is unlikely. We will probably be recording it and then throw it up on the internet whenever I get around to feeling like getting around to it. So, with that news out of the way, Adam Baldwin, on a probably an hour-long show, has agreed to come on and talk to us on his lunch break in between filming scenes for whatever project he's working on right now. It might possibly be The Last Ship, season 4, I think, or 3. But I don't know. I haven't asked him. But we will ask him all the questions that cross our minds live on the show and broadcast it later. That news out of the way, I will pause to take a sip of water and allow my co-hosts a chance to get a word in edgewise. Dorrinal, how was your week?
It's been a great week here with me. I'm really happy every time I come back. I'm reminded that whoever coined the phrase, the gift of gab, was a prophet, speaking of our gab in the future.
And, Brian, how was your week?
Oh, well, I don't want to take any of the wind out of Adam Baldwin's sails, but I've had a huge week. Just all sorts of plans I've been working on for months or years, just all hit, like, on Tuesday. So, you guys out there might be noticing my new avatar. That's from the cover art for my second novel, Soul Dancer, the sequel to Ethereal. It is currently being converted from a raw MS Word manuscript to an ebook, and it will be out next week. I will let you know when.
Whoa, good news.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Highly anticipated sequel to his novel. If you have not read his novel, there is a link to it in the description right now. And of course, when his new book is out for our next episode, we will update that with a link to the sequel.
Hey, I've got good news, because I actually finally got into Ethereal, and I really like it so far. I do plan on finishing it next time I don't have internet. It's great.
Good. I'm glad you got out.
And yes, I did notice, for longtime listeners will recognize this reference, and not fairly early into the book, a gentleman used the formula when investigating a possible ambush at his home. I thought that was great.
Thank you. Just a little bit of my real-world RPing experience, making it into the book. That's the value I bring to geeks everywhere, because that's the kind of stories that I write, man, is the kinds of story I wanted to read, but no one was writing. It was all about sad polar bears starving to death on ice floes and bodice rippers thinly disguised as sci-fi. So I'm like, I'm going to write something fun. And a little weird. More than a little weird. But fun. So it did. And enough people agree that also, for those who have been keeping track of the Sad Puppies foresight, where it is not a slate this year, it's not a campaign, all they're doing, the lovely ladies over there led by author Kate Pollock, is putting up forum threads, one for each category, asking sci-fi fans, hey, give us suggestions for what you think the best science fiction works were in 2015, and they're just going to take the top 10 recommended works in each category and put out a recommended reading list. That's it. Right now, Ethereal is tied with Declan Finn's Honor at Stake for number 5.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But that, welcome disbelief gave way to just complete horror, really, when I found out that over in the Campbell Award, which is not a Hugo, it's given out along with the Hugos, but it's for the best new writer of the year. And some satisfied readers have put my name in the hat for that. And I counted, and I was going to say that I'm beating Andy Weir.
As we furiously Google Andy Weir.
The author of The Martian.
I see.
Oh, that made a great movie.
It did.
I get the feeling you're not shooting for great movie though. I think I feel you're shooting for great anime.
There you go again. You're my target audience, exactly. I would love that.
See, I don't bother Googling things like that because I know that somebody else is going to say it or put it in a chat or something anyway, so it's like, why bother? All right, so we had 3 different things we wanted to talk about. I had a topic I was going to cover as quickly as possible. Dorrinal had a topic he wanted to talk about, and then Brian has ventured to abuse his poor brain cells to see the new George Clooney movie. What was it you wanted to talk about, Dorrinal?
Oh, well, in the vein of pop culture geeky goodness, I wanted to bring up the new X-Files stuff.
Okay, that's right, the X-Files series. And since I have control of the mic of the soundboard here, that means I get to go first. I get to abuse my authoritas.
Oh, we're just glorified water breaks for you anyway.
This is the news. Last night, a brand new hashtag was born on Twitter, RIP Twitter, trended #1 in the U.S. and #1 worldwide, has the last time I had an official count over 700,000 tweets in less than 16 or 17 hours. Which is, that is Gamergate level traffic on this hashtag. And it was spawned by a report from, of all places, BuzzFeed. They broke out of their typical Disney princesses as X, Y, or Z, and their typical, 15 ways your car can be uglier. Number 5 will surprise you. To wreck Twitter. They broke out of their typical work to wreck Twitter, and it worked. Also yesterday, another thing that was pushing this is a number of Twitter staffers at Twitter headquarters in San Francisco tweeted out an appearance by Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian at their headquarters, and they were lecturing, and also Phelps, a former member of the Westboro Baptist Church. And if you don't remember off the top of your head who they are, that's fine. Go look them up later. I don't want to talk about those nut jobs. Everybody hates them. Everybody hates them. So they paid, we assume, because Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian only do paid appearances, we assume Twitter paid to have them come to Twitter headquarters and lecture them on improving Twitter. The other thing that BuzzFeed announced was that Twitter would be moving next week to what they called an algorithmic timeline, where instead of presenting your timeline in reverse chronological order, as would be implied by the microblogging service which Twitter is, they would instead be promoting the tweets that they think you want to see in whatever order their algorithm determines. So Twitter would, in effect, become a crappier copy of Facebook. This upset a lot of people all across the political spectrum. No less a personality than Rob Lowe, the actor, and William Shatner, also an actor, opined on how bad they thought this change was to the service. A Twitter engineer then tweeted out at one point, "Hey guys, don't be worried. We're not idiots. We're not going to destroy the service." This got noticed, and he received many, many irate replies, to which these irate replies, he said, "I'm kind of surprised people other than my followers noticed my tweet." Now, that was an exact quote because I don't have the exact tweet in front of me just right now. A Twitter engineer said, "I didn't really expect this to expand beyond my direct followers, but that's the power of Twitter, I guess." And that is an exact quote. Now, this indicates, I'm going to wrap this all up because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. What this indicates, one, is that when a Twitter engineer doesn't expect his tweet to go beyond the people who follow him, that means he doesn't understand what Twitter is. And it means he doesn't use Twitter, at least not the same way that normal people use Twitter. Now, I have heard many, many times, read many, many times from tech bloggers that they know, and have heard from people who work at Twitter, that most of the executives at the company don't ever use Twitter as regular users or hardly at all. And most of the engineers don't use it as regular users or hardly at all. Twitter doesn't understand, as someone else pointed out earlier today, its own culture on the site. It doesn't understand the functioning of the site. It doesn't understand how users use it, and therefore doesn't understand how to improve it. Twitter is in a process I have dubbed shitification. And shitification is a verb I coined, which means to shit up, to shitify, as in Twitter has shitified its site.
So Daddy Warpig, I gotta ask, what's the other form of that? What's the passive form of that? Because I think it should be shitted.
Be shitted. I like shitification, and since I coined the word, I don't know what the passive form is. I haven't thought about it. In any place, Twitter has, in point of fact, shitted its site a great deal over the last several months, introducing features that nobody wanted and are generally completely useless, like moments. The Moments tab is something people only click on by accident when they meant to click on their notifications because Twitter switched the location of notifications. So you would accidentally click on Moments. Another couple of great and awesome features it introduced is shadow banning, where people who follow other users will not be able to see the tweets of those they follow. To where if you tweet something out, no one else on Twitter will see it, even people who follow you, who have specifically chosen to see your tweets, even they will not be able to see your tweets. This marvelous new feature, this glorious and groundbreaking new feature, is intended to diminish the quote-unquote harassment on the system, harassment in this case being defined as anybody who criticizes an SJW. Now, the worry that I have, that is shared by a great many other people, is that Twitter staff not only inviting and possibly paying for Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian to come and lecture them on how to make the site better, both of them are heavy advocates for heavy-handed censorship. Therefore, things like this shadow ban will become more and more common. Something else that happens in a shadow ban, or can happen, you disappear from Twitter searches. Even if somebody goes and types in your specific account name, it will never, it shows them nothing. It says you have never tweeted, not once. And I know this because it has happened to me. Both types of shadow bans. I've had people who follow me report back to me, hey, we can't search Twitter and see your tweets. It says you've never tweeted. And just to reassure you, I have over 139,000 tweets on Twitter. So if Twitter is saying that I have never tweeted before, they are mistaken. Twitter has already decided on its own to drop heavy-handed censorship in ways that are plausibly deniable, as I pointed out in my rules of Twittering. The first one of which is Twitter is so buggy that errors in programming are indistinguishable from deliberate sabotage. Twitter, this is my second rule of Twittering, Twitter is so poorly designed that intended functionality is indistinguishable from deliberate sabotage, hence the Moments tab. And the last one of which is this: Twitter staff is so corrupt that intentional sabotage does occur anyway. And that's what really drove RIP Twitter. Not just that Twitter was going to destroy the usability of the service by removing its chronological timeline, but that there is no trust between vast swaths of its user base, whom Twitter has been screwing with in plausibly deniable ways for a long time. It is a real fear, a plausible fear, that this new algorithm will promote certain tweets and demote certain tweets, not based on what one user actually wants to see, but based on what Twitter wants you to see, which does not include gamers, Republicans, conservatives, the alt-right, or anybody Zoe Quinn or Anita Sarkeesian happen to dislike. And it's not unrealistic because they've already done it with shadow banning. They've already made it impossible for people who follow me to see my tweets. Why would I believe in Twitter's good nature that they wouldn't ban my tweets to the bottom of someone's timeline just because they don't like me or just because I've been falsely reported for spam or whatever? So RIP Twitter was finally answered by Jack, the CEO of Twitter, who issued a non-denial denial, which was, well, we weren't planning on rolling out algorithmic tweet timeline next week. Really? You weren't planning on rolling it out next week? Well, Jack, when were you planning on rolling it out? So just a heads up, my interpretation of Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian's appearance is that Twitter will intensify its efforts to surreptitiously censor users it deems to be inappropriate, unsatisfactory, maybe even a bit disreputable. It will surreptitiously censor all those it disapproves of, and if that doesn't work to sate the cries of many SJW users for censorship, they will soon crack down on people who they deem to be undesirable, which, to be honest, probably includes every single person listening to this podcast. That's RIP Twitter. That's my rant for the day. So I'm going to step back, take a sip of water, get away from some serious stuff, and I'll let Dorrinal talk about the X-Files for a bit. So, tell me, Dorrinal, does the new X-Files series actually in shitting the X-Files? I've been worried about that.
No, actually, that's the short answer. No. Um, so I have a secret. Like many folks, X-Files was a part of uh, my growing up. I thought it was a lot of fun, a lot of great episodes. The acting from the two leads was really great. A lot of really cool and wacky and interesting stories were being told every week, and it was a lot unlike what you saw on TV those days, right? But I have shame. I have secret shame. I never saw the last season. And judging by the stuff that happened where they had to sort of tie in things that happened in the last season, I'm glad I didn't, because it seems like the last season of the X-Files shitted it.
They got rid of the main character for the entire last season. He was just gone, except for the very last episode.
Yeah, it wasn't even the worst part of it, but it was one of those things like, but why would you have X-Files without Mulder? Why would you have The Office without Michael Scott? I don't get it.
Why would you have Chuck without, Chuck?
Yeah, a major secret of the X-Files. I mean, people always talk about what a genius Chris Carter is. He was not the best writer on the X-Files. In fact, I'm going to drop a bomb here. I'm going to make a bold statement and say that Chris Carter is really overrated as a television screenplay writer. The real heart and soul of the writing team was a team called Morgan and Wong. And I did see, because I saw the third episode of the new series, that they are involved, but they seem to be teaming up with Chris Carter and alternating. Like, one will be written by Wong and Carter, and then another one, Carter and Morgan, but not Morgan and Wong, which is disconcerting.
I wouldn't worry about it at all, because you know what? The first episode was they had to tie in all the things that happened at the end of the season, sort of catch everybody up on the characters. Do I need to recap the X-Files to anybody? Come on. But the idea is that it's been years since Mulder and Scully worked for the FBI, but they're drawn back into government conspiracies by some new information. It's a really what they call like a mythology-heavy episode where it's all about the ongoing conspiracies of the government. And that
Like
first episode.
10%,
Yeah. The first episode, that one was the Chris Carter episode, and it wasn't good. It flat out. I watched it with my wife, who's also a huge X-Files fan, and at the end, I was like, I didn't hate it, and I'm happy to see them trying to do X-Files again. That just wasn't a good episode of television. The plot made no sense. The structure of it made no sense. They were just going from here to there, and the dialogue was particularly bad, which is probably Chris Carter's weakest, greatest weakness as a writer.
You know how you can tell I'm not really an X-Files fan?
Uh-huh.
Because I liked the several episodes of The Lone Gunman I saw better than any single episode of the X-Files I ever saw.
That's something. In fact, but come on, there was a point in the episode where one of the other characters, Joel McHale, is playing this Glenn Beck-ish, conservative conspiracy theorist. He's totally off the rails, except this is the world of the X-Files, so he actually has some access to, quote-unquote, the truth, right?
So it's like Alex Jones, kind of, like an InfoWars?
Yeah.
Okay.
He promises Mulder, hey, I've got, I'm going to show you this secret thing that's going on. I'm going to take you to see some people, and you, me, and half the fans were like, yes, please let it be the Lone Gunman. It's got to be the Lone Gunman. It turned out not to be. Of course, they died in the last season. Another way they shitted the whole freaking thing.
Yeah, they showed up as ghosts in one episode.
Oh goodness! See, this is why I didn't watch the last season.
It might have been the last episode. They were just standing on the side of the road as ghosts.
Man,
I like those guys. They were awesome.
Yeah, it looks like they just apparently they shat on a lot of the things that made the show good, but that doesn't matter, right? Because the episode ends with the government tying up all the loose ends, and Mulder and Scully, in a completely unbelievable twist, are hired again to reopen the X-Files
By the FBI.
by the FBI. Makes absolutely no sense, and you know what? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because guys, get this: the X-Files are back, right? Who cares?
Yeah.
They're back. And the very next episode, they don't even. There's no explanation. You've got a million questions, right? You're like, why would the FBI reopen the X-Files? Why would the government, after murder, kidnap, etc., to cover up all its secret conspiracies, why would it hire these two troublemakers back, right? No, none of that is answered. It's just like the next episode. Oh, hey, we've got a new case. Let's do this.
It's because Chris Carter needed the money, and that's why. Look, I've said before, I mean, I haven't even seen the second X-Files movie yet, but I don't need to, because the Mothman Prophecies is the X-Files movie we needed, if not the X-Files movie we deserve.
I actually liked that movie.
I know, it's awesome. It should have been, it could have easily repurposed the script with Richard Gere as David Duchovny, and the sheriff as Gillian Anderson, and it could have been an X-Files episode.
Okay, so if people like the X-Files, they'll enjoy this series. Is that what you're saying? The new series?
I mean, anybody who liked the X-Files probably seen them already, but yeah, the first episode was bad television, but they go right back to, like Brian was saying, they go back to the good writers who did all the fun episodes, all the storyline stuff, non-mythology stuff, where they're like, here's a case of the week, there's a monster, crazy stuff happens, and they have fun with the characters. It's well written and a lot of humor. Actually, the second and especially the third episode, the one you caught, Brian, were really good. Like, genuinely fun episodes of TV.
See, I gotta slightly disagree. I did not like episode 3 that much. It seemed like a caricature of a good late 90s Morgan and Wong episode. It seemed like Carter was trying too hard. Like, oh, I could be as funny and slapstick as those guys.
Okay. So, half recommendations from both you guys?
1.5, because I thought it was okay. And like Dorrinal said, the X-Files are back. I don't know, Dorrinal, recommend?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm planning on catching up on the the episode. I think it's only supposed to be like a 6-episode thing. It's just a quick short season. Just, hey, the X-Files are back. Let's have a couple episodes. I think Chris Carter ran out of money under the couch.
So, all right. Well, a rousing endorsement of the new X-Files series. Let's see if we're going to be any luckier with George Clooney's new Coen Brothers directed movie, Hail Caesar, which, by the way, is not doing very well at the box office. It's kind of bombed this weekend.
Which is a shame, because it's awesome.
I'm afraid the audience is probably I'm thinking probably going to need a little bit more detail on that.
Oh, details you shall have, audience. So the full title of the movie is Hail Caesar, A Tale of the Christ, actually, or at least the movie within the movie. And the entire production is a love letter from the Coen Brothers to 50s studio system Hollywood. So those who have been following my blog or my Twitter will know that just the degradation and the warping of Hollywood into a propaganda machine for the elites, it just churns out hate mail to its own audiences. Look at these forever rubes. This movie harkens back to when the people making movies, I mean, I know it's caricatures, I know that they're composite characters, but just the idea was in Hollywood, hey, we make pictures. This is special. This work has worth and dignity, but we're going to put fun first.
In and of itself, it has worth and dignity. You don't need to push politics to make a movie worthwhile.
Right, exactly. And sure, was there politics? Yeah, but it was behind the scenes. because in the movie, I'm going to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but I mean, I know that Josh Brolin is in it from the trailer. He plays the head producer of Capitol Pictures, which was the outfit featured in a previous Coen Brothers movie, Barton Fink, and it's his job to make sure that the movies get made by hook or by crook. So that doesn't just involve like financing and PR, but it involves quashing rumors that a starlet is shacking up with a mobster, or in some cases, coming up with ransom money for an actor who's been kidnapped so the movie can get finished. And just dealing with all this, and you see how crazy and chaotic his life is. Like, he barely sees his wife and kids. He's on call 24/7, dealing with these crazy actors. And I know that Warpig, you mentioned you invoked George Clooney's name almost as a curse, but here it works because Clooney plays just a stupid, vapid, self-important actor. And it is Josh Brolin's job to straighten him out, which he does with aplomb.
I will say this. I have every confidence that Clooney has done a sufficient amount of real-world research in that role.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm debating whether or not to reveal what is perhaps the most satisfying scene of the film.
If it's a spoiler, don't talk about it, because I haven't seen it. Dorrinal hasn't seen it, and I like the Coen Brothers. Can we do a quick recap? Coen Brothers did 2010's True Grit remake, which is an excellent movie. They did No Country for Old Men, also an excellent movie. Bit of a downer, really kind of depressing, but still an incredibly well-made film. They are consummate directors. They are highly controlled, highly precise as directors, and make what they go for. Are you a Coen Brothers fan, Dorrinal?
Absolutely. I mean, all I needed to see at the trailer was the Coen Brothers made a movie that looks like what Brian Niemeier said, like a tribute to the old Hollywood system, and with all those people in the cast. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go see that movie.
Good.
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, Big Lebowski, Brother, Where Art Thou, Raising Arizona, Blood Simple, they're Fargo. I mean,
Yeah, Fargo's probably my favorite still.
Can I say I'm a big fan of Raising Arizona? I know it's quirky and odd and bizarre, and it has Nick Cage, but I'm a fan. I like it. Or at least I liked it the last time I saw it.
Yeah, they can get good, stellar performances out of actors who might be on, and that's what they did here. I do want to talk about what I thought was the most technically impressive part of the movie, which is the movie takes place on the studio backlot. So, hey, what better excuse to show us snippets of the various genres and types of movies from Hollywood's Silver Age. And so as Josh Brolin is going around visiting these different sets, we just get to see scenes from a water ballet and a shoot-'em-up western and, high-profile, Oscar bait pick, a musical. And the Coen Brothers are able to transcend mimicking or aping those genres, and they just produce movies in those genres, man. I mean, the stuff they come up with, like the stunt work of the shooting in the western, or the pageantry and choreography of the musical, they would fit in perfectly in 50s Hollywood. Like, I would pay to see those scenes expanded into whole movies, each and every one of them.
All right, so big thumbs up from Brian. We are overtime here, which is fine. We had several people coming late. I want to reassure those people who came in late. The episode will be available on YouTube shortly after we get off the air here. So if you missed the earlier part, if you missed my rant about RIP Twitter, if you missed Dorrinal's discussion of the new X-Files series, by all means, you can go back and listen to it later. I'm going to give Dorrinal one last chance to say anything he wants before we take off.
Oh, thanks for chatting, guys. It's always fun.
Brian, any last words?
Yes, the theme of Hail Caesar is that actors are too stupid to know what's good for them, and they need the strong hand of a studio that knows better to keep them on the straight and narrow. And that movie delivers that in spades. It's beautiful.
if that's the message of the movie, I would find it hard to come up with a convincing argument to countermand that particular position. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Geek Gab, folks. We appreciate all the new listeners and, of course, all our returning audience, which I think is limited to Brad right now, Bradford Walker.
Hi, Brad.
Everybody say hi to Brad. Thanks for tuning in. This is Geek Gab here every other week or so lately with your hosts, Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are signing off for today, but don't fret, don't worry, don't waste a single minute wondering. We will be back.